Okay, YouTube, what's really good? My name is Vivid, coach of the South Texas Sableyes, and my WBE season might be over, but the playoffs look incredibly exciting, so we're going to talk about that today. A few things I want to get out of the way before we actually get into this video. One, I still have a Pokemon Halloween themed spooky season ready shirt. It will be the top link in the description down below. That will take you to my Teespring account. You can pick up this really adorable design. My wife Emily knocked it out of the park when she designed this. We have another shirt coming out very soon. Look forward to that. I think people will enjoy it too. If you enjoy watching me here on YouTube, you'll probably also enjoy watching me live on Twitch. That will be the second link in the description down below. I go live with Pokemon content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Please click that link, follow me over there. I would love to see you in a stream. And number 3, most of my views are coming from people who actually aren't subscribed. If that's you and you just haven't thought to click subscribe yet, please go ahead and do me that favor. Also, it helps out a lot that DuncanCantDie has said if we hit 10k subs by the end of October, which I think is unfathomable, he will give away a PlayStation 5 on my channel, which is just extra incentive. If you are new here and you haven't subscribed yet, please click that button. It would mean the absolute most. All right, so how this video is going to be structured is I'm going to talk about the top 8 coaches that qualified for playoffs. I'm going to be talking about their teams and sort of their usage stats throughout the season. I'm going to be looking at all 4 of the matches. There's going to be 4 playoff matches this weekend. I'm incredibly hyped. You should be too. And then after that, I'm going to be giving my opinions on how I think the matches will go. Just some some sort of gut reactions. I'm also going to be talking about if I was betting with my heart versus if I was betting with my wallet, because those are very different things, and we'll talk about that later. I also have sort of tidbits from people that are in my front office. I asked 3 other dudes for their opinions, so we'll be comparing my opinions to theirs and just talking about how we think the playoffs are going to go. My question of the day for you all and the conversations I want to see in the comments down below are for all 4 of the matches happening this weekend, who do you think is going to be the winner of those matches? We can talk about strategy, we can talk about stats, we can talk about whatever. Just please keep it positive, constructive, no tearing anyone down. That's not what this is about. I'm not here to try and destroy someone or say someone sucks, because honestly, I think all of these people are really great. But answer that question. So the 4 matches specifically are WolfeyVGC versus Kaycreigh, Aaron Cybertron Zing versus SierraDawn, aDrive versus, which is a weird thing to say, and then Jack from NerdOutGaming versus DuncanCantDie. So those are the 4 matches. Who do you think is going to be the winner of each of those matches? But now let's just talk about it. All right, so first and second place were really close this season. In first place, we had Aaron with a differential of plus 13, which is insane. He only lost 1 match throughout the entire season. Aaron's team is Noivern, Whimsicott, Unfezant, Excadrill, Stoutland, Toxtricity, Gmax, Decidueye, Seaking, Primarina, Gigalith, and Bronzor. So right off the bat, I would like to point out that Aaron's team is very top heavy. It's something that I think could come into play. It's very likely that it comes into play in the playoffs. That being said, I think Aaron's a fantastic player, so it's hard to just sort of bet against him in any capacity. But what I mean by saying his team is top heavy is, like, I think there are 3 Pokemon on Aaron's team that he hasn't brought at all, or they haven't touched the field at all. And that is, I mean, it makes sense because Aaron's core, sort of like the core of Aaron's team, is Whimsicott, very strong, Excadrill plus Gigalith, very strong core, Primarina, super strong. So Primarina, Whimsicott, and then you also have sort of like Noivern as a really fast, it can be Tailwind support. If Whimsicott's not Tailwind, it can also just be like an offensive sort of flying spam. You can max Hurricanes, which does a lot of damage, and then Toxtricity, Decidueye. So like his real heavy hitters here are Toxtricity, Excadrill, and Primarina. Those are like his best Pokemon. Those are the things that he wins most of his games with. Did I say Excadrill? I'm pretty sure I did. Those are the Pokemon that he has like the most offense from, and then he has really fantastic speed control, having a weather mode. He has the Tailwind from the Whimsicott. His team is super solid, right? So looking really strong. Again, he only dropped 1 match throughout the entire season. I don't even remember, I think it was to Versus actually. Versus had some like sort of tricksy, ally switch plays that caught Aaron off guard. Coming in second with only 1 differential point less for the regular season is DuncanCantDie. Duncan, record of 9-1. I don't actually know who Duncan lost to. Actually, I think it was Reversal. It was a really surprise week. Like, I think Reversal just got him because Duncan forgot that his Magneton had taken damage and didn't have Sturdy active, or so. If I'm remembering that correctly, that's how it went down. But Duncan specifically has kind of a super threatening team if you really look into it. Duncan has access to Gengar, Lopunny, Sigilyph, Urshifu Single Strike, Darmanitan, Porygon Z, Flapple, Magneton, Cottony, Lapras, Gmax, and Togetic. So really a bunch of very heavy hitting Pokemon. Things like Urshifu Single Strike hits super hard. Darmanitan, super like massive damage. Porygon Z, probably, I think now I'm learning, is one of like the hardest hitting things in this entire format. Really really puts people on tilt to just get max struck to death. Flapple, a really impressive breaker on its own right, kind of needs some speed control to go with that, but he also has the Cottony, which offers him this like super clutch support Pokemon. It doesn't get Tailwind, but it gets Cotton Spore, so it halves the speed of your opponent's side of the field. Lapras G-Max, just letting you set up Aurora Veil while still being an offensive piece, and then you have like these defensive pieces like Togetic, Magneton, kind of, not really. Sigilif is something he wanted because it offers gravity, so now he has Gravity Hypnosis with Sigilif Gengar. Lopunny, I don't think is a real Pokemon. I don't know. The rest of Duncan's team looking really solid. Been really good prep from him all season. Makes sense that he is in second place. In third place, we have the Gardevoir Guardians. That is Versus Network. Versus team, hold on. I'm having to find these as I talk about them. Okay. Versus' team is Inteleon, Raichu, Durant, Kingler, Flareon, Gothitelle, Sandslash, Grimmsnarl, Gmax, Incineroar, Machamp, Exeggutor, Alola. So Versus' team was one of the teams that I thought was very not fantastic after sort of like right after the draft, which if you go back and watch me ranking, like my ranking the teams videos, I'll put a card up here. I was very wrong about a lot of these calls. And I mean, I think coach skill came into play here like a lot, but just watching the battles happen throughout the season, a lot of these teams were more diverse than I thought. Versus did make a lot of changes to his team that I think greatly improved the overall power of it. But yeah, Versus just has a million fake out users. He has Raichu, which gets fake out. He has Gothitelle, which gets fake out. Grimmsnarl gets fake out, and Incineroar gets fake out. So he has 4 fake out users. He has a lot of damage control with Grimmsnarl setting up screens, and Incineroar having Intimidate and Snarl. Gothitelle being a trapper, Durant being a super heavy hitter. I think Versus team is actually very good. It's hard to play against. He's also a wild card. I'm just going to throw that out there. I was about to say he has like an okay Trick Room mode with the Exeggutor Alola form, but he's just a massive wild card. Like the speed tiers are pretty reasonable, but really it's just all these fake out users. He has really good max targets in like Inteleon, Durant, Grimmsnarl, and I guess you could say to an extent Machamp. But yeah, just like pretty solid max targets. A really disruptive play style. Also, like being able to disrupt your damage with like screens, snarls, intimidates. Yeah, Versus team is really diverse. I going into that week when I was playing him, I did not think it was going to be as difficult of a match as it was, and it was a nightmare. Versus ended the season at 7-3 at a differential of +9. Kaycreigh also ended up at 7-3 with a differential of +8. She is coming in at 4th place. Kaycreigh's team, she has a really solid team. I know that off the top of my head. Salazzle, Comfey. Also, these teams I have right now, they're listed in order of their speed tiers, so sort of like how fast each Pokemon is, like the fastest Pokemon at the top, and then it goes down from there. So Salazzle, Comfey, Ninetales, Venusaur, Gmax, Cloyster, Purloin, Tyranitar, Mawile, Araquanid, Dusclops, and Fungus. So Kay's team, really well-rounded. She has an insane weather mode with just Venusaur and Ninetales. That's really oppressive. It's very strong. Comfey is just a strong support piece in general. She also has access to Tyranitar, which gives her dual weather control, which is insane. Purloin gives her a way to sort of like get prankster shenanigans off. Like Purloin, I think is 100%. It's not the only reason Kay beat me in our week. She also just played really well, but Purloin contributed to my loss in my week against Kay. It's actually like really frustrating to play against prankster mons in a format where you're preparing for another person's team. Like you know what they're gonna have. So these prankster mons, I think, get a lot more value. She has a reasonable Trick Room mode, like actively pretty good, with Dusclops, Araquanid, Fungus being able to spore things inside Trick Room is really valuable. Yeah, Kay's team is really well rounded. She's been killing it all season. I mean, I'm gonna have some hot takes about these matchups, but we'll get to that. Okay, next up, we have DC Dracovish Wolfglit coming in at 5th place, 7-3 with a record of +7. All right, so Wolf has access to Jolteon, Arcanine, Diglett, Rillaboom, Gmax, Drifblim, Dracovish, Scrafty, Piloswine, Wigglytuff, Musharna, and Escavalier. Wolf has a pretty well-rounded team here. I think the biggest flaw in Wolf's team is that it's really like a bunch of hard-hitting physical attackers in Jolteon, so not the best in terms of like differentiating your damage output. Like a lot of his damage output is just physical. I think Arcanine can be kind of special, and I guess you can make a case for Drifblim being a special attacker, and Musharna kinda, but those aren't like massive offensive pieces, whereas like Jolteon is, right? So like most of his offensive pieces are physical, which I think the only downside here. But yeah, Wolf's team really well rounded, great speed tiers, good Trick Room mode with Musharna, Escavalier. Wolf has played insane this season. There have been like I think he even talks about it a little bit. in sort of his later season matches. Like, he's just been busy, not been able to put in the amount of prep that he normally does. So definitely like lost some games, which is, you know, it's a big surprise to see WolfGlick lose 3 games in a VGC season. I think a lot of people were surprised about that, but I think Wolf is going to be playing like a big brain in the playoffs. So definitely someone to look out for sure. All right, so coming in at 6th place with a record of 6-4 and a differential +6 is Dan, aka aDrive. Dan has Ninetales, Alola, Drapion, Rotom Frost, Togekiss, Blastoise, Gmax, Hitmonchan, Serena, Sandslash, Alolan Form, Rhyperior, Turtonator, and Bronzong. So a few standouts here from Dan's season. One, he's really put some respect on Turtonator's name. He's made Turtonator into kind of a threat this season, which is very impressive. Serena has been something that's been really good for him this season. Denies priority, just a hard-hitting Grassmon. Blastoise Gmax, I don't think he's gotten as many Shell Smash sweeps as he would like, but still a massive threat. Togekiss, just a really, really solid, like utility piece, can also be offensive, just depends on how you want to run it. But then I think sort of like the new standout here is like his Ninetales plus Rotom Frost combo. Just having Blizzard spam is worth a lot. Also, it gives you a weather mode that isn't, I mean, he has the weather mode with just Ninetales Sandslash, right? So like Ninetales being able to set Veil, really strong. Rotom being able to spam strong Blizzards, very strong. Sandslash getting speed inside the weather, also very strong. Like, Dan just has a really well-rounded team, and I would look for him to try to make a very deep playoff run. He's a solid player. I think he stands good chances here. Jack from NerdOutGaming came in at 7th place, again with a record of 6-4, this time with differential +3. Also kind of comparable to Wolfie, someone who's been incredibly busy for the last half of the season. I think dropped some games, or at least played not as optimally as they otherwise would have, because just Jack's been busy moving houses, hasn't had internet access. I think he even had to take a forfeit loss for 1 week. So yeah, Jack, super unfortunate. Again, like Jack and Wolf both been busy for the last half of the season, but Jack is the person who I think a lot of people thought Jack had the best team in the league post-draft, and it still stands very strong. Even like I think right now he's made some changes to it that I think one change has probably like weakened it a little bit, and then I think another change has definitely strengthened it. But Jack's team is Hawlucha, Sneasel, Virizion, Indeedee Female, Mamoswine, Klotzer, Behaim, Delmize, Deblade, Colossal, Gmax, and Steelix. Okay, so Jack has a lot of modes here. Colossal Gmax can pair with Sneasel or Klotzer to get the Steam Engine going. The Steam Engine weakness policy, you can Surf with Sneasel, you can Aquajet with Klotzer. Those things can both proc Colossal to make it a super fast boy. You can run sort of like Behaim and Indeedee Female to run a Trick Room mode and also just have the Psy Spam option. You can do Sneasel into Virizion to beat up the Virizion and get it to +4 attack on turn 1. You can also use Sneasel to set up Hawlucha by Ice Sharding it and proccing a weakness policy, and also getting rid of Hawlucha's or like proccing Unburden. So you would proc a weakness policy and Unburden, so Hawlucha would just be really fast and hit harder. Hawlucha can also just proc off of Indeedee Female with weakness policy. So a lot of modes here, a lot of synergy. I think that getting rid of dual terrain might have been at his detriment, but at the same time, I think he picked up some pieces that are really, really strong here. Like, I don't remember what he dropped for Steelix in sort of like the early season, but Steelix I think was a good add here. I don't remember what all he dropped, because he also had Pincurchin and Alolan Raichu. I just don't think he ever brought them. I think they were good threats to have around, but I guess whatever he's doing here, it's working because he's played well. And I think maybe the Mamoswine was a late season pickup. I don't know. The moral of the story is Jack's team has a lot of modes. It's really hard to prep for all of them, and he can also bring almost all of them in one team. Like if you just bring Sneasel, Virizion, Indeedee Female, Hawlucha, like if he just brings this core plus like Klotzer and Colossal, like you have to be prepped on turn 1 for Surf Colossal, you have to be prepped for Aquajet Colossal, you have to be prepped for beat up Virizion, you have to be prepped for like weakness policy and Burden Hawlucha. There's just a lot going on here that I think makes his team a big threat. And then finally, coming in at 8th place, we have SierraDawn, coach of the Toronto Maple Muse, 5-5 with a differential of -1. SierraDawn and Kyle actually had an exact tie. They were both 5-5 with a differential of -1. I just think Sierra had actually beat Kyle in the regular season, so head-to-head came into play here. So also, like, big congrats to Sierra. It's really dope for this being her first, like, I think this is like her first foray into competitive Pokemon, and she played really well. Her team is insane, and let's actually talk about it. So Sierra's team is Talonflame, Cinderace, Blastoise, Dracozolt, Krokorok, Bisharp, Weezing, Trevenant, Ditto, Clefairy, Ferroseed. Okay, so I'm going to say this and this might be a controversial take. I think that out of every team in the playoffs, I think Sierra has the strongest team. Just looking at it on a baseline, because she has a really, really strong offensive core, right? Just like Talonflame, Cinderace, Dracozolt is a lot of offensive power just pressed into one. She has a very good defensive piece in Clefairy. Ferroseed can also be a really good defensive piece that's just really hard to break through. There's definitely some like lackluster pieces here, like Crocorock just dies to Water Spit or Ice Spit or Fighting Spit. It just dies to like a lot of attacks. Like its bulk is pretty negligible even with an Eviolite. The Wheezing is pretty solid here. Neutralizing Gas can come into play really heavily. It's also just a pretty bulky Pokemon, so I could definitely see that coming. Trevenant is a piece that I think could be really disruptive. It can be really hard for certain teams to break. Ditto, I don't think Ditto is very good. Honestly, anyways, the moral of the story is I think Sierra has probably the most well-rounded draft team in the playoffs, and that's my take on it. So now I've talked about the coaches, I've talked about their teams, I've sort of talked about the usage stats a little bit. I think the only person who has relied heavily on sort of like the same core six has been Aaron, so I don't feel like talking about usage is as important. I think Aaron's even addressed this, like why would he not just bring the best six each week? If he's formulating like a core that makes sense each week, then just stick to it. But yeah, so that's it. This is what we've talked about. And now we're going to talk about the individual matchups and how we predict them to go. All right, so the first matchup we're going to look at is the Melbourne Rotoms, coached by Aaron Cybertron Zhang, versus the Toronto Maple Muse, coached by SierraDawn. I think this matchup's going to be really interesting. One of the things I mentioned earlier is Aaron has been winning a lot of his games just by having really, really fantastic speed control. I mean, aside from the fact that he's a world-class VGC player, his speed control is really top tier, and it's been kind of overwhelming for some opponents to play against. Like Whimsicott with Tailwind just puts on a lot of pressure early on. It lets his things like Primarina and Tox outspeed things that they have no business outspeeding. His weather mode is really fantastic in a draft league setting, and honestly, I think his weather mode is kind of going to be the go-to here. Like if you look at the matchup, Sierra doesn't have a fantastic response to Excadrill outside of like Blastoise. I think like Blastoise is really good. I guess Wheezing is okay as like a defensive option, but that doesn't seem fantastic. No, it's not, because Excadrill can also just, it's not going to run Mold Breaker. I don't know. The moral of the story is, I think Sierra's key pieces here are, one, she can match his Tailwind. She can match Tailwind for Tailwind. Like Talonflame can also Tailwind. So Cinderace can presumably be faster than Excadrill and do work that it needs to do. I think Blastoise is going to be really key here. The Dracozolt doesn't look like it makes a massive difference in this game, which sucks because I think Dracozolt is a great offensive piece. It just doesn't look fantastic in this match. I think Aaron is just going to be relying kind of heavily on the Excadrill here, because just Excadrill looks like it has a nuts matchup. I guess Trevenant could come. Trevenant looks like it actually has a pretty reasonable matchup. Like Trevenant is only bad against Noivern and Decidueye, right? Like everything else Trevenant looks to be pretty good against. So Trev, I could see like being a pretty substantial bring here. Also, it's worth noting that Sierra and Aaron have already played. Sierra has a really fantastic front office. They've been prepping her really well. She's been practicing a lot. She's been putting the hours in. I could definitely see them sort of like isolating why she lost her first match against Aaron and coming back with like a really bomb strategy. So I'm definitely not counting Sierra out, honestly. And this is like, again, I'm going to be putting predictions out here with my wallet and my heart. And this isn't shade to any coach. If I was betting with my wallet, I'm betting that Aaron wins here. If I'm betting with my heart, I really want Sierra to win here, because there's something about sort of like the underdog tale of Sierra coming in at 8th seed, this being her first competitive event. Like it would just be very, very dope if Sierra won. So now I'm actually going to pull up sort of what my front office boys had to say. Also, all of their links will be in the description down below. The people I'm pulling opinions from are Root 8100, Audie, and Duke. Audie and Duke have been the two that have helped me build a ton this series. I fully trust their opinions here. They might not be, these like massively well-known VGC players that other people have in their front offices, but all I'm saying is that the prep they've given me has been really, really good, and I think in some instances close to immaculate. It's always my play era. I'm really impressed with them as a duo, so I just want to massive shout out to them real quick, and then let's read their opinions. Okay, so Audie in Sierra versus Cybertron, Audie has this to say. Sierra's strength and weakness is her prep. She spends hours running mocks against her opponent's team, in some cases against unpredictable teams like Duncan's. I think this is a weakness as it causes her to narrow in on certain opposing modes, making her more open to surprise. But against Cybertron, speaking from experience, this is a massive strength. Aaron has a super top-heavy draft. Look at his team stats. He barely brings his lower mons. Sierra will 100% prep against what Aaron brings. This is a good point that I was trying to make earlier. Also, I haven't read their opinions yet, so this is all new to me as well. That being said, Aaron is probably the better player. I don't think... Yeah, sure. Okay. And he has the better matchup as well. I'd say Excadrill and Sand super threatens her team. Sierra can't rely on Tailwind to win the Speed War because on top of a Sand Setter, Aaron will also have Whimsicott set Tailwind, helping him win the Speed War. Trick Room is unlikely to be a factor in this matchup. Neither team particularly has an impressive Trick Room mode that threatens the opponent. That being said, I'm not ready to rule out Sierra yet. She knows this weakness and she wants to win. She has a great front office helping her. Running mocks against Aaron's predictable team may give her an edge. I'd say Aaron beats Sierra with a 65% confidence rate. Yo, Adi went in. These opinions are like hot takes. Okay, so again, I'm going to be sort of like the devil's advocate here, saying like, I in this instance, like I really want Sierra to win. If I was betting with money, I'd bet on Aaron because it's hard not to. But if I'm betting with my heart, I'm betting Sierra. Okay, Duke on Sierra versus Cybertron says Cybertron beats Sierra. In my opinion, Sierra has an awful matchup. Obviously, Cybertron is also a top player, but his team just has a very strong matchup against hers. I think we're all sort of like honing in on Excadrill, which I think Sierra is going to prep for very well, which I think could give her an edge. So I agree with Audie's take there. If Sierra can surprise him, I think she has a chance to make a run as Cybertron is her worst matchup in the bracket. This is also something I agree with. And then Root's opinion, if we scroll down, Cybertron over Sierra. Cybertron has an impressively strong team with a number of options. Sierra has shown in prior weeks that Trevenant can be an equalizer on its own, and a Pokemon that Aaron doesn't offensively deal with terribly well. That's a good point. And moreover, the Sierra of Week 4 is remarkably different than the Sierra of Week 11. That said, Sierra has one of the shallowest teams in terms of offensive threats in the playoffs. This is something I don't super agree with. I think she has a ton of offensive threats, but I think what Root is getting at is offensive threats for this week specifically. Like, Cinderace is obviously an offensive threat, but it might not be the right offensive threat for the week. I think like the offensive threats this week, really, if you have to break them down, are like Blastoise and Trev, but Trev is more of a defensive threat. And Aaron's team has significantly more options. I expect Aaron to have a Decidueye and or a Noivern built specifically to take on Trev. Yeah, and Noivern would make for a strong late game max target. This is also a very good take. Okay, so all four of us are sort of like in agreement that if we're betting with money here, which I'm assuming that these are sort of like I'm saying, like it's very different when you're saying like who you're pulling for versus like statistically who you think will win. But we're kind of giving the edge to Aaron here. I do think he has matchup just because I think Excadrill is going to be really hard to prep against. That being said, if Sierra can figure it out and if they can just do something really insane in prep, I think Sierra stands a chance. The problem is Aaron is really good at adapting to games 2 and 3. That is something that I think has been apparent all season, and it was incredibly apparent in our week 10. All right, so the next match we're going to talk about here is Big League Energy, coached by DuncanCantDie, versus the 8 Luchas, coached by Jack from NerdOutGaming. And like I said earlier, Jack's team has a ton of modes. He has the Sneasel, which sets up like half of his team. He has Terrain from Indeedee. He has a lot of really fantastic pieces here. The problem with this matchup in Jack's favor this week is I don't think Duncan even has to prep for Jack's team. I don't think he has to prep for Jack's team outside of being able to shut down Colossal, because Porygon Z on its own decimates Jack's team outside of like the Blade, Colossal, and Steelix, which are like the Colossal, yeah, is a really bringable Pokemon. The Deblade and the Steelix, I don't think is much. Like Steelix kind of, sure, but Steelix also has really bad Spadef, so it's still taking, I'm assuming, a pretty good chunk from max Porygon Z. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm assuming it still takes a ton. You can also just max Darkness into the slot. The Colossal looks like Jack's like most threatening mode, just because like the speed control is really nice. It's hard to like, because Togetic kind of shuts down like the beat up strategy. Togetic can shut down Klotz or Aqua Jetting into Colossal, but you can't super shut down Surf into Colossal, right? The problem is all you have to do is have Togetic in play and just have Lapras, or even I'm sure just like Choice Band Urshifu close combat kills Colossal if you like EV things right. Yeah, I think this is going to be a very hard week for Jack. If I am betting with my wallet. I'm betting for Duncan. Duncan's a good friend of mine. So I'm not like, I would bet Duncan with my heart, I guess what I'm saying here. Jack's been really nice to me this season. I think he's a great guy. But yeah, Duncan's a stellar dude. And also I think he just has matchup here on sheer offense. Like Jack doesn't seem to have proper defensive answers to Duncan's offense, but this is my opinion. Let's see what my front office says. So we're going to go to aDi first because aDi seems to have the most detailed. Okay, NerdOut versus Duncan. What I found through prepping for NerdOut, his team's biggest weakness is its modularity. I agree with this. His team falls into design modes, and while yes, there are quite a few of them, you can prep for that in draft. That is a weakness of our team, to be fair. Yeah, it's true. It's for sure a weakness of my team. You should make a season recap video at some point with some improvements for next season. I will do that, aDi. Thank you for the idea. Duncan's team is the hardest to prep for in the league. It's hella hyper offensive, and the thing you have no idea what sets he's gonna run because Boyd is a monster. Boyd is Jamie Boyd. He's in Duncan's front office. He helps Duncan build every week, helps him with sets, like gives him EV spreads. Like Duncan has input, but Boyd is a monster. Like if you watch Boyd, if you know who Boyd is, he's a monster. Yeah, NerdOut's team has excellent modes. Duncan's hyper offense just overwhelms it, and Duncan has done a great job maintaining unpredictability throughout the season, which will do him good in playoffs. I'd say NerdOut beats. Okay, no, he's saying Duncan. I'd say NerdOut beats Duncan with 90% confidence rate. Okay, I agree with this for what it's worth. I think that. Again, I think Duncan's offense here is just really, really strong. Let's see what Duke had to say. Duke says, Duncan beats NerdOut while Jack's team is excellent. I believe it isn't very strong against Duncan's hyper offense. No disrespect, Jack's team is great and he's had a great season. Duncan's hyper offense just overwhelms. We're all kind of like honing in on the same opinions here. Just like, what do you do? I mean, like, how do you prep against Urshifu single strike, PZ, and then on top of that, like Darmanitan can come and just blow away half your team with a flare blitz? Like, how do you beat that? I mean, look at Darmanitan on the team. I haven't even thought about that. It's not even something I mentioned. Darmanitan one-shot Sneasel, Virizion. I'm sure it one-shots Indeedee. It one-shots Mamoswine. It one-shot. I'm sure it one-shots Beham. I'm sure it one-shots Delmise. I know it one-shots Blade. I'm sure it one-shots Steelix. I'm sure it one-shots Halucha. I think the only thing it probably doesn't one-shot is Colossal here. That I just now figured that out. Oh my god, yeah, Darmanitan looks nuts. Okay, and then Root says Duncan over NerdOut. NerdOut has a very strong and impressive team combos between Colossal and Virizion. The Duncan has a strong toolbox for disruption with Cottonee and Togetic. Yeah, I didn't touch on Cottonee in my evaluation of this, but it is worth noting that Cottonee kind of stops a lot of the shenanigans just by clicking Taunt or just by clicking Cotton Spore. Like Cotton Spore halving Colossal speed after it gets to max speed means that I'm sure it still gets outpaced by some of Duncan's faster threats because Colossal speed tier is trash. It's like 30 base. Where are we at? Either next to a Darm or Lapras lead, in theory, manages them, though a lot would depend on lead selection. That said, I'd bet on a game 1 Virizion due to the strength of the matchup, and a strong counter lead could overwhelm early. Subsequent adjustments, as always, will determine a lot, but Duncan can abuse a lot of disruption. I agree with this. Yeah, so I think we're all sort of four on the same page here. We've all four been on the same page so far. I think I'm gonna have a hot take in a minute, and probably disagree with my front office here a little bit. But yeah, so far kind of all in the same headspace on these matchups. Okay, next matchup we have to look at is going to be the matchup of Versus Network, the Gardevoir Guardians, versus Dan, aka aDrive, coach of the Minnesota Vikavolt. So let's look up at the matchups here. Okay. Okay, so Dan has a weather mode here, which I think is really, I think it's good, because that was something we kind of honed in on versus his team, is that he doesn't really have a weather mode. Okay, so this might be a hot take. If I'm looking at these matchups, I think they both have really good pieces here. I think that Versus's team is sneakily one of the better teams in the playoffs just because of all of its control components. What I mean when I say that is, like I mentioned, Versus has 4 fake out users. He has really solid max targets. I think the biggest problem that Versus has is that he typically builds around 1 Pokemon to max, and that is his max target every game. It's just so diverse in how he plays his games and the sets he brings that I think he's kind of a wild card here. And with a team that has this much disruption, I think he stands actually a really good shot. This is, I think, the hardest matchup to predict, in my opinion. I think Dan's weather mode looks really good. I think Blastoise is okay in this matchup, but just in front of like Grimmsnarl setting up light screens or Incineroar clicking Snarl, things like that, I think Blastoise could be a little underwhelming because you could presumably always just fake out Blastoise turn 1 and then click Snarl or click screens. I just think like the Blastoise looks pretty good, but it's going to be hard to get off the ground just because of all of Versus's control elements. Durant looks like a massive threat here. I don't think there's a single Pokemon on Dan's team that is just like a solid check to it. I guess Rhyperior counts here. Rhyperior would check Durant. Well, no, it gets Steel Spike. I don't know. Okay, so if I had to give this matchup in a vacuum, I think I would give it to Versus. I just think that, like, again, the control elements here I think are really, really strong. I think that the sort of like the varied max targets are going to make it really hard to predict. That being said, I would not count Dan out. If I'm betting with my heart here, I would want Dan to win. I like Dan. He's a good guy. We're friends. Again, no shade to Versus. I think Versus is also great. I know Dan better. But if I'm betting with my wallet here, I think I'd put money on Versus. This is a hard one. This one to me is the closest to a 50-50, just because I think this matchup is really close in terms of like what is viable to bring here. Like if Dan leads Ninetales, like can you even guarantee that you get an Aurora Veil off? You have a million fake out users. If your plan is to like next level that and lead Ninetales as a max target, then you're maxing like a suboptimal Pokemon because Ninetales special attack stat is not great. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a hard matchup to call. I think a lot of Dan's success has been on the back of Ninetales, like Rotom Frost. Like the thing is, like Versus isn't even super soft to like Blizzard spam, right? Like Incineroar resists, Flareon resists, Durant resists, Inteleon resists. Like, granted, these aren't the bulkiest Pokemon in the world, but it's worth noting that they actually just like resist Blizzard spam, which is worth something here. Yeah, I don't know. Turtonator, again, I've said this a couple times. Turtonator is a Pokemon that Dan has been very comfortable with this season, and I think he's kind of made a name for it, which is impressive. Turtonator looks to have a pretty reasonable matchup here, but with Versus having things like Flareon in the back, it's really hard for me to say that like Turtonator, because like Turtonator's best stab is its Fire Stab, right? Like I guess the Dragon Stab is fine here, but I don't know, man. It's a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup. I feel like Versus's control elements are going to win out here, but I could be super wrong. I think the one thing Dan has going for him really, really well is the Trick Room mode of Bronzong and Rhyperior, also with Turtonator. I think that core could be super dominant here. I don't think the Ice core is going to be super dominant. I think he'll bring Ninetales because I think he's brought it every week, but it's just like you can't even guarantee that you're going to get an Aurora Veil up, right? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Versus has the edge here, but this match is the closest to a 50-50 for me. Now let's consult a front office. All right, Audie on... Where are we at? Okay, aDrive versus Versus. Unlike Duke, I think Dan's team is very, very strong here. His Trick Room mode is his real strength, and Versus has bowed counterplay to Trick Room. Okay, so I did mention this. So whenever I like line up with Audie's thoughts, I feel really smart. Whenever I line up with Audie and Duke's thoughts together, I feel very, very smart. Okay, sure, Versus has Fake Out Taunt, but those aren't surefire ways to stop Trick Room, and once Trick Room is up, Versus doesn't do too well, barring Intimidate, Shuffling, which still isn't great. And it's not like Versus is guaranteed. It's not like Versus guaranteed wins out of Trick Room either. Apart from that, Versus doesn't have great weather control, so Dan can abuse his hail. Theoretically, Ninetales can set up a Aurora Veil for free, but the speed tie with Durant is awkward. Sandslash and Blastoise are pretty good as fast sweepers, especially with redirection. This is something I didn't take into account. Blastoise does look really good here with redirection, so just like a lead of Blastoise Kiss could be really strong. I think the biggest problem with this is, if that's your strongest mode, you're just going to get presumably beat out by like Grimmsnarl setting up screens and then something clicking Snarl, right? I think that's the biggest issue here, is that Versus has a lot of damage control options and also just like a lot of fake out. I also kind of disagree with Ninetales setting up Aurora Veil for free. Like Versus has so much fake out that I think that's not going to happen, and you're just going to blow the Focus Sash. Obviously, this is something that Dan can like sort of single out and prep. But anyways, Yeah, so who does he have? Oh, aDrive. He doesn't really give an opinion. Oh, I'd see aDrive beats versus with 85% confidence rate. That's a lot more than I had. That's a lot of confidence there. I'm close to a 50-50 here. Let's see. Duke, aDrive beats versus. This is the one I'm least certain about. While I don't personally think aDrive's team is that great in this matchup, I think the matchup. Oh, wait. No. Okay. Well, I don't personally like aDrive's team very much. I think the matchup is very even. That's what it is. These are two of the hardest working coaches in the league, so the prep should be excellent. This is the match I'm most looking forward to watching. That is a good point. aDrive and Versus have really killed it in the prep this season. So big shout outs to them. And then on to Root's opinion. Okay, so we have 2 for aDrive here. I'm on the fence. I'm saying Versus. Root says Versus over aDrive. These are the teams I know the least about, but aDrive's main setup options, Blastoise, Sand/Turtonator, are not oppressive enough or manageable to disrupt. Versus seems well equipped to play longer, more grindy games. The clear exception is a strong season for Rhyperior, which makes an unironically solid Kingler matchup stronger. Versus has a less linear team, which I think gives him the freedom to counterplay and build for a longer game. I agree with this. This is where I'm at. Okay, so we're 2 for 2 here. We've all, like, the first 2 we all equaled out on. This one is the first one where we're kind of like split down the middle. I'm veering towards, I think Versus has matchup here, but it's close to a 50-50 for me. Root seems pretty confident in Versus here, and then Audie and Duke both think that Dan just has it. So, and Audie's 85% confident that's a big confidence number, so that is something. All right, so this one's 2-2. All right, so the final playoff match this weekend is going to be the LA Spice, coached by Kaycreigh, versus the DC Dracovish, coached by WolfGlick. This is the match where I think I'm going to have the hottest takes here. Probably like a differing opinion from most other people. So if I look at this matchup, again, I think that a lot of Wolf's really strong offense comes in a physical form. Jolteon being the best special offense that Wolf has. The problem is, I don't think Jolteon's special offense is particularly good against K. Like Jolteon is not very good against Venusaur. It's not very good against Tyranitar. It's good against Araquanid, but Araquanid has an insanely high special defense stat. It's not, I mean, it's okay against Dusclops. Sort of like K's like main components here. I think that she can probably build her team in a way to sort of take advantage of the fact that Wolf's team is mostly physical and kind of try to plow through it. Again, Wolf doesn't really have weather control here, so Ninetales being able to like supercharge Venusaur's speed is worth a lot. Venusaur looks pretty threatening this week. Earth Power hits Arcanine, Poison coverage hits Rillaboom, Grass coverage hits Dracovish reasonably well. Dracovish doesn't have like superior bulk here either way. Piloswine, it hits hard. We're hitting Wigglytuff hard. Like the biggest issue is kind of like Escav, but you can run Weather Ball for things like that. I think Venusaur looks really strong this week. K also can just go for like really fast sleep powders, which I think is something Wolf is going to have to be cognizant of. I really, okay, so this is my hot take. If you look at the matchup between Wolf and K, I think K had a really good game plan. I think Wolf just outplayed her in, it was game 3, I think was when the outplay happened. I don't remember the specific matchup. K took a game off Wolf, which is like, you know, for K, it was like a massive surprise, but I honestly think K has like a pretty reasonable matchup here. I think that she is going to adjust her team and her play well. I think I said this earlier in the video, but I think you get more out of a loss than a win when you're going into a rematch. Like the person who lost gets more information and gets sort of like more valuable tools to use in the rematch than the person who won, because the person who won, like, which honestly, this is WolfGlick. I'm not trying to say like he's just gonna run back the same sets. I know that is not the truth. Like he's WolfGlick. He's gonna do something. He's gonna change it. He's gonna make his team better. He's gonna retool. I know that, but still, the person who lost gets the better tools. K has been playing insanely well this season. Honestly, if I'm betting with my wallet, I'm gonna bet on K. I think it's a hard bet to make. I think that Wolf is probably K's hardest matchup in the playoffs. So if K wins, I look for her to do very well throughout the rest of the playoffs. But saying that Wolf is K's hardest matchup, I don't think means that it's a super hard matchup. I think matchup is probably close to something like 55-45 or 60-40, slightly favoring Kay. I mean, like, this, I could be very wrong, but like, Dracovish doesn't look super insane here. It doesn't look like, one, you're going to be like, Dracovish and Sun is never just as potent as Dracovish anywhere else. Rillaboom doesn't have fantastic targets. Like, Rillaboom's not good against Kay's main weather mode. It's just not. It's good against Tyranitar well enough, but Tyranitar is also good against the rest of Kay's team, aside from like Rillaboom. Or Tyranitar is good against Wolf's team except for Rillaboom and Dracovish. I'm stumbling on my words here. Yeah, I really feel like Kay has matchup here. I think as long as her nerves are in check before she goes into the battle and she can calm herself down, which I think has been like one of her like sort of like biggest struggles this season, is like being able to go into a match calm, which super same. I get that, me too. I think Kay has matchup here, and I think Kay would win. I am also, again, if I'm voting with my wallet, I vote Kay. If I'm voting with my heart, I vote Kay. No shade to Wolf. I think Wolf's a great guy. I like Wolf. I enjoy his content. I enjoy like the conversation and the banter he provides. But there's something about like an underdog story, which is, again, same reason I would really love to see Sierra win. I would really love to see Sierra and Kay win. I think it would be like a really cool story arc for this season of the WBE. I feel like Kay actually has matchup here. So I am going to pull the hot take card and say I think Kay wins. And this is probably going to be the most controversial take and probably the one that the comments are going to be most about. Now let's go. I'm pretty sure I haven't read all of my front office's takes, but I'm pretty sure they're all going to disagree with me. So let's go here. Wolf versus Kay. Wolf needs no introductions. This is aDi. He's a 2016 world champ, 6-time regional champ. We don't need Wolf's entire resume here. That being said, Kay has picked up the VGC format quickly with the help of a star-studded front office. She drafted one of the best teams in the league and performed well in the main season. So for analyzing Wolf's team, really good type coverage, really good range of speeds, weakness, pretty physical team. Analyzing Kay's team, so many modes to prep for, plus she's always brought surprising sets. That is very true. I think this is a closer matchup than one might think. I think Kay's Sun mode does well against many of Wolfie's sweepers, and I'll have to play smart around it. I think Wolfie's Trick Room mode beats Kay's, and she'll have to bring some text to prepare for that. This is objectively Kay's worst matchup in the finals. This is also what I said. So if she can pull through, she has a good chance to win it all, but her matchup is so-so, and Wolfie is an amazing player. I'd say Wolf beats Kay with a 65% confidence rate. So aDi saying Wolf over Kay, 65% confident. I'm saying 55%, 60% confident on Kay. I'm gonna give her the bump there. 60% confident on Kay. Duke and Wolf versus Kay. Wolf versus Kay. Wolf beats Kay. Wolf is one of the handful of the best VGC players in the world, and this is Kay's worst team matchup in the playoffs. The team that wins this battle will be the team I expect to win the championship. That's a big claim. And I'm going back and forth about aDrive versus every day. Oh, this was just like the aDrive versus matchup. Oh, so he was wishy. I didn't read this the last time. He was wishy-washy on aDrive and versus. Me too. It's a coin flip to me, but I think versus has matchup. All right, and then Root on Wolf versus Kay. Wolf over Kay. Kay has a remarkably strong team of 6. I can't imagine coming. Her team, in theory, has a ton of options and overall very positive matchup. Wolf will very likely bring multiple sets that I couldn't even pretend that I would be able to predict, and truthfully, I'd imagine it'd also push Kay into riskier builds. The win will most likely be won on techs, which I imagine goes to Wolf, but a match I anticipate watching. Okay, so yeah. So again, these three are saying I really feel like Kay is gonna come back. I think she understands why she lost her match against Wolf. I think she's gonna come back. I think she's gonna like reassess her game plan, and I really do feel like Kay has matchup here. Again, I think this is her worst matchup in the playoffs. I don't think that means it's a bad matchup. So Yeah, this is gonna be an insane weekend for Pokemon content. I'm super stoked for this. All right, so that's it. These are all the matchups happening this weekend. These are my predictions for how things are going to go. Every team, I said how I would bet if I was betting with my wallet versus my heart. Please don't take that, anyone, please don't take that to mean anything kind of negatively. I just like, you know, I really love an underdog story, which is why some of the heart pulls are just like, I really, really want the underdogs to win. And then also they're just people that I'm better friends with. So it would just be cool to see them win. So this doesn't mean anything. I think everybody in the season is fantastic. I love all of the coaches that I've played with, and I think that this is going to be a super hype playoff. Let me know which takes you agree with, which takes you disagree with in the comments down below. I'm super excited to read through them. Probably get flamed a lot. I think that this is going to be, I don't know. I'm just really stoked. I think this is a good weekend to be a Pokemon fan. It's a good weekend to be a Draft League fan. It's a good weekend to be a VGC fan. Definitely check out these matches. Before I go here, I want to remind you, please subscribe if you're new here. It would mean the absolute most. Also, remember to follow me on Twitch. The Halloween t-shirts, those things will be linked in the description down below. Leave a comment, like this video if you enjoyed this content. Also, follow me on Twitter because I realize I need to also push other social media platforms. So follow me on Twitter. That's it. Those are all the things I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute most that you spent however long I spent rambling with me here. Thank you. I'm done here and I have to leave. Okay, bye. Oh, you made it to the end of the video. That's dope. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more from me and make it to the end of those videos, there will be a video here and a video here. This one is a video that I think is really good, and this is what YouTube recommends. So you should watch one of them. Okay, thanks.